Good morning. For today's First Chapter Friday, we are reading the first chapter from The Boy Who Failed Dodgeball. This is the second book in the series, and so if you like this, I would definitely recommend checking out the first book. It was The Boy Who Failed Show and Tell. Um, but I think you'd be fine reading this one on its own too. It's not one of those that you'll miss too many details if you jump right to the second book. Chapter 1, Blood and Fireworks. In my almost 12 years on this planet, I'd like to think I've learned a few things. So I've decided to share my hard earned wisdom with all of you young people out there. Let's start with the best piece of advice I can possibly give you. Don't be born on a major national holiday. Sure, it's great that you will never have to go to school on your birthday, but being born on the 4th of July nearly killed me multiple times. It started before I was even born. My dad, who is a psychiatrist, got drafted to be an army doctor in the Vietnam War just after my parents found out my mom was pregnant. By the time I came around, my mom, my dad, and my big sister Lisa lived on a big military base in Missouri called Fort Leonard Wood. My mom went into labor late at night on July 3rd, 1969, so my dad called the hospital. There were only two doctors on the staff who delivered babies, and one was off base for the big July 4th weekend. The other was at the base's massive holiday fireworks party, super drunk. Anyway, my dad and a couple of other base doctors found the drunk guy, threw him in the shower, and gave him a whole lot of coffee. When my mom was ready to give birth, she was mostly just incredibly hungover. Or he, not the mom. My mom saw that he looked kind of sick and shaky, so she made a deal with him. She said that if he delivered me safe and sound, she would name me after him. His name was Ted, not Theodore, just Ted. I guess he didn't drop me or anything because my parents named me Jordan Ted Sonnenblick. Then there was the biggest July 4th ever, the bicentennial on July 4th, 1976. When I turned 7, the country went all in on the grandest birthday celebration in its history. In Staten Island, New York, where I have lived since I was 13 months old, kids painted every fire hydrant red, white, and blue. The older kids let me paint two white stripes on the one at the end of the block. New York Harbor, from the Statue of Liberty all the way to the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, was packed with hundreds of tall sailing ships, big fancy yachts, fireboats, barges, and small speedboats. There were even dozens of U.S. Navy ships. It was like a gigantic, very wet traffic jam. A couple of days before the big event, teams of workers started to hang the largest American flag ever made between the two towers of the bridge. My richest friend, Stephen Vitale, had a house on a big hill overlooking the harbor. So my sister and I went over there to play with Stephen and his sister and watch the flag go up. The girls were playing hula hoop at the bottom of Stephen's long, steep driveway, while Stephen and I took turns trying to skateboard down from the street to the house. This was kind of challenging because the driveway wasn't perfectly smooth. It had lots of sharp pieces of gravel sticking up from the cement. Stephen went inside for a drink break, but I decided to take one more turn. Somehow, just after I reached top speed, I lost my balance, went flying over the front of the board, and landed face down. My forehead must have hit one of those sharp pebbles. I think I was knocked out for a second, but it didn't hurt or anything. I stood up and started walking towards the girls, who took one look at me and ran screaming to the house. I couldn't figure out what was wrong until I felt something warm and wet dripping into my right eye. Stephen's mom came out, took me inside, and washed me up, the new dent in my forehead. By the time she was done bandaging me up, I was feeling pretty dizzy. So she took me to Stephen's room, led me to the bed, and told me to rest. But Stephen's room had a huge picture window that faced the water, and after a while, practice fireworks started going off. If you've never gotten banged on the head, cut up, and knocked out, then locked in a room with the rockets, red glare, and bombs bursting in air outside, I don't recommend it as a pleasurable activity. 2 days later, I was feeling mostly recovered, aside from the intense itch that was coming from under the pad just above my eyebrow. My whole family went to the roof of the building where my dad's office was. The building was only a block from the harbor, so we had the best view in town for the parade of ships and the fireworks display. Everybody got plates and filled them up with hamburgers and hot dogs. As we settled in to eat with all my dad's doctor friends and their kids, a question popped into my head that I just had to ask somebody. For as long as I could remember, all the grown-ups in my family had told me that the July 4th fireworks were for me, but there had never been a gazillion sailing ships, a 200-foot tall flag on a bridge, or a huge official citywide fireworks display before. Had I done something special to deserve this? It was important to know, so I'd remembered to do it again next year. I didn't know what bicentennial meant, and it was all pretty confusing. I turned to my dad's friend, Dr. Asatola, and asked, "Why is July 4th such a big deal this year?" "Because this year is the 200th," he replied. "But I'm only 7," I exclaimed. That was when it hit me. The celebration wasn't in my honor at all. I took my plate behind a big brick chimney, sat with my back resting against the bricks, and cried. All this time I had thought I was famous, but really, I was just a little nobody. Do yourself a favor. If you don't want a lifetime of danger and heartbreak, be born on some random Tuesday in October. Or maybe March. March is nice. But here's the thing about being born on July 4th, it teaches you to love fireworks, to wish for bigger and bigger fireworks, and to hope that one day you'll be such a big deal that the fireworks are for you. All right, chapter 2 is Pick Your Heroes Carefully. So hopefully you enjoyed that first chapter. Come down and check out this book. Have a great day.